Okay, guys, thank you for coming out today to talk about this concept. I really love social psychology. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's a topic or a branch of psychology that really goes unnoticed. But social psychology is how people influence other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions. And when you think about social psychology, that's what goes on at your age level. You are influenced by a lot of other things around you. So today we're talking about the concept of groupthink, and we're talking about decision making. So I guess the first question I'll ask, and you can raise your hand, is were you alone or with the group with the worst decision that you ever made? Definitely with the group. Okay, and after that decision was made and the fallout happened, what were your thoughts on the decision that you helped make?
I think if I were alone in that situation, I would have probably thought about it a different way and ran through the consequences a little bit more than having all the adrenaline and all the people coming at you and saying, oh, you should be doing this, this, and this.
Okay, so would anybody else make more of a poor decision in a group than alone without saying what that is? I'll raise my hand, I'm not innocent. Okay, so most of us have made a decision, a poor decision with the group. What was the group dynamic? Without, like I said, without saying an event, what was the group dynamic that was happening when that decision was being made? So the group was moving towards the riskier decision. What was being ignored?
I think the long-term effects of what the decision can lead to were definitely being ignored, and maybe even like your friends and how they would feel if you pressured them into doing something and they still wanted to say no and they felt self-conscious about saying no. That's definitely ignored.
Yes, I agree.
I think definitely like the person thinking later like how this was going to affect them mentally like after it was all said and done.
Yes, so facts were ignored. Thoughts of consequences were ignored, absolutely. Was there anybody in your group that took the lead of the poor decision? Was there somebody who was more excited than everybody else? So raise your hand if you've had that dynamic where there was definitely what we call a ringleader. And that ringleader, did they pull you towards the more riskier decision, right? Because they're usually not the voice of reason, right? So yes, we've all been in a situation where you get pumped up, you get really excited. And if your group tends to pull, because the groups tend to pull towards either the more conservative or the riskier side of things. And we believe as a society that groups tend to be more conservative, but the reality of it is groups tend to take more risks and uncalculated risks and go towards that side. That's where the group polarization pulls, is towards the riskier behavior. So absolutely, and significant facts are ignored. Did anybody in this particular group right now feel a twinge of maybe this isn't a good idea? Let me hear what stopped you from, and you talked a little bit about that, but what stopped others from saying, hey, maybe we should rethink this?
The fact that everybody else was going to do it.
Everybody else is going to do it, sure. What else?
You don't want to be the one that gets made fun of because you didn't do that risky behavior or whatever they are going to do. You don't want to be the one that's the uncool one or the one that can't fit in to the group.
Or the one that's left out. Because if it all goes well, then you're not the one with the memory then because you were left out. So what's basically the word for what you're describing? There is that phrase that we all heard in middle school that we hear all the time, peer pressure. So was it internal peer pressure or external? Was somebody actually saying these things to you, or was it internally what you believed about your friends?
Because no one's gonna force you to do anything, but it's just that feeling that you need to do what everyone else is doing.
And that's really important because we tend to say the word, we throw the word with a phrase peer pressure around, but the reality of it is our good friends probably don't make us do anything. It's the internal pressure that we put on ourselves to do something. So it's more us, we're the peer pressure. It's really interesting to break peer pressure down because, like I said, that phrase is thrown around an awful lot, and it always makes the others the bad guy when really it's you talking yourself into it and you putting the pressure on yourself because of a perceived peer pressure. What other dynamics may occur that would make you go with the group, or what group dynamics may be going on with a group? that pulls towards a ringleader or makes you ignore those facts. I'll give you an example. What if you already did something like this and you got away with it? So prior knowledge may be that you actually got away with it the first time. Doesn't everybody talk yourself into the idea, like rationalize what you're about to do, give reasons for it? We rationalize our behaviors all the time. So in a group, when it's pulling towards the riskier behavior, that's why we tend to do that, because we're rationalizing everything. So groupthink is really important because you have to always ask yourself, because okay, we're talking about this concept, now what do we do with it? To combat this social psychology, this group polarization, this groupthink, this peer pressure, to deal with that, before you make any decisions, the key is to say, would I do this if I was by myself? If the answer is no, you know what you need to do. That pulls you away from that group polarization and that pull towards the group. Always ask yourself, would I be doing this if I was by myself?
But I think when we're going through that, if everyone will do it, if it's the right thing to do. If you kind of sit back and think like, the group, pretty much everyone probably in the group except that ringleader is going through the same exact thing as you are. If you were the one to just step up and say like, no, this isn't right, like you could probably save a lot of people's futures, including your own, if it's really that risky of a decision.
So what I would say is be the voice of reason. Be the voice of reason within your group. And the second thing is ask yourself, would you do this by yourself? If the answer is no, don't do it. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Hopefully we gave the younger students, because you guys are the upperclassmen of the school, a little bit of an idea of how to combat peer pressure that's more internal, how to not pull towards the riskier side of a group, and how to think for yourself, how to be an independent thinker. Think before you act. That's really the big thing.